The previous basket is under review.
Welcome to Stats by Will and Jim, the college basketball podcast that focuses on the numbers. I'm your host, Jim Root, joined, as always, by the statistical guru himself, Will Warren. We are proudly under the Basket Under Review umbrella. Please check out the site and the Discord if you have not yet. We think it's the best college basketball community going on the internet. Only $10 a month gets you access to all kinds of outstanding writing, including Will's weekly pieces and the weekend watch list, which I contribute to and highly recommend. Great write-ups before you get into a big college basketball Saturday. You also get access to the Discord, where there's all kinds of chatter at every hour of the day about any kind of topic. If you want to debate whether Nolan Minnesali is the best transfer potentially in the portal next year, my God, are we the place for you? You can also argue about whether James Najee should be eligible, etc. Anything in the college basketball realm, the Discord has it, and it is lively and active. So $10 a month, if you're already in there, thank you. Tell a friend. Highly appreciate that. It keeps the site going and keeps us able to provide all this content for you. Okay, Will, we are through the Christmas holiday, which means we took a little pivot. There hasn't been a lot of basketball to watch, not a lot of stats to highlight. So we are going to go with a mailbag episode here today. We took some questions from the people on Twitter and Discord. How are you feeling about this crowdsourcing of the content this week?
Good. Worried. Always worried about what other people than us think. You never know. I live in fear of the general public. They could come up with some truly crazy questions. But we put out our call, and we have, I think, 12 that we ended up liking, which is a pretty good hit rate, I got to say. So mailbag is kind of like an old reliable thing. I don't think we would do this more than like once or twice a year, but it's nice to pop this off on occasion.
Yeah, especially, like we said, there's been a dearth of hoops over the last week, so there wasn't a lot of change, a lot of things to highlight. There are a couple questions that will certainly probably make us enemies, particularly number 11, Will. I'm excited to anger a team, and that one will get there down the list, people, as we go through. But for the listeners that it is not their first episode, you'll know that we always start out with a stat of the day trivia question where I wouldn't say I try to stump Will, but I try to highlight something I think is fun and get Will's brain going, and hopefully the listeners as well. So we'll start there. And I don't know what inspired me to do this one, Will, but at any point in the season, you can go through and find the teams that have risen or fallen the most in KenPom. But today, I want you to try to name, we'll go 3 of the top 10 Power 5 teams that have moved the least in KenPom since the preseason. So they are right tracking with their efficiency margin from the opening day rankings, the preseason rankings. I've got all 10 have moved less than 0.7 in their efficiency margin since day one. So we'll see if you can, we'll see how many you can get. If you can get more than 3, then I'll let you just keep going.
So I kind of wish I'd kept track of this more. I did a piece like 2 years ago about the least important teams of, I don't remember, it was November, December 2020. It was whatever year Duke started like 5-3 or 6-3. Whatever year they lost to NC State in the Elite Eight. And there was all these like, is Duke trash? Is Duke in trouble? Not naming names. And they had moved like literally 0.12 points in efficiency margin on KenPom that month. And I was like, come on. We got to get a little serious here.
Yes, it's not overreact to a couple losses, but yeah, there's 1 or 2 teams in this list that might qualify for that same or a similar honor.
All right, so I am going to wager, and this is based on my memory of preseason, and obviously Ken's rankings I'm remembering start off pretty light preseason, like fairly conservative. I think there was one team over 30, and it was Houston.
I believe that is correct. Yes.
I'm going to say in that spirit, Florida has not moved much despite falling to 12th.
Florida is not among the top 10. Let me see if I can find them real quick. They have slid just under 3 points in efficiency margin.
Okay, that's fair. I'm going to say Clemson.
Clemson is also a no, but they are really close. They are under 1 of change in efficiency margin, but they're outside of the 10. So they were really close. Them and I guess one other team they're almost tied with, right outside.
Let's go Oklahoma.
Gosh, that one also feels good to me, but no Oklahoma.
Really? I
Oklahoma's
can't believe
just
I'm over.
yeah, they've moved just over 1 point. So I mean, you're not far off with these by any means.
Okay, so let me think here. I'm going to wager, let's say, man, now I'm stumped a little bit. I'm looking at KenPom right now. I'm not looking at preseason stuff.
Okay.
Oh, St. John's, because they were
St.
low,
John's.
like 15th or something on KenPom.
That's a winner. That is their number 6. They've slid 0.35. That's all they've dropped. So with the rising tide around them of elite teams and top teams kind of moving up, I think they've slid down a few rankings. But that goes to show, and I know they were rated higher in human rankings than KenPom, I think, generally speaking. So that's why people have panicked on them, but they're right around where analytically they were expected to be.
I'm also going to wager that Tennessee is somehow in this, because you always find a way to include Tennessee in these.
I sure do. That was going to be one of my hints was, what do I always do to you in this? Tennessee is 5th. They have moved up 0.32, so right around where they were anticipated to be in the preseason. Outside of
So they
that,
were 9th or 10th preseason?
is that right?
They were,
I don't know.
They were at least top 12. So it does go to show you, like, the upper end of the sport is increasing if Tennessee has actually risen a little in KenPom in terms of
Yeah,
efficiency margin, and has dropped spots. So that's the state of the sport right now.
yeah, you're right. They were 9th, and so they've fallen 7 spots. But yeah, the emergence of like more of the dominant teams and all of that has pushed them down. The rest, or at least a lot of these other teams, are further down. I think
Okay.
there's maybe only one other top 50 team in the consideration here.
All right. I'm going to wager 3 in a row, and then you can tell me if any of these are right.
Okay.
Northwestern. Okay. Northwestern. Let's go Syracuse. And let's go Colorado.
2 out of 3. So that's
Okay.
not bad at all. Northwestern has barely moved, negative 0.14, and Colorado's up a half point in efficiency margin. Syracuse, I just clicked out of it because I'm a goofus, but Syracuse they're down 1. So right around where they were too as
Not
well.
bad. All right. What are the rest?
Okay, the rest are Arizona State and South Carolina have not moved at all. They're within 0.03 and 0.04 respectively of where they began. Then you got Northwestern at 3rd, like you mentioned. West Virginia is only up 0.31. So they have stayed close. You also got Tennessee and St. John's. The other top 50 team, surprised me a little bit, was Auburn. They are right around where they began. I guess knocked a little lower when Bruce Pearl took over, or when Bruce Pearl retired and Stephen Pearl took over. They've lurked around the 30th or so. And then Virginia Tech is 8th. Colorado, as you mentioned, 9th. And SMU sitting right there in the Enfield zone between 40th and 50th, almost 45th to 55th. I think that's where I technically call the Enfield zone there, right around there. So yeah, those are the teams that, at least from an efficiency margin perspective, have been about what you'd expect, or about what Mr. Pomeroy expected coming into the season. But again, I think it's
okay. Auburn actually does make sense to me, because they were up like to 18th or something at one point, because they were blowing out some Q4s, and then they got 3 of their 4 losses. I know they've gotten demolished. So maybe that's affected it, and it's like evened out basically.
Yep, and they went to OT with Bethune-Cookman on opening day, and they dropped a bunch. But then they got all the way up to 20th, and then Arizona and Michigan smacked them, and that really put them back to where I guess they began, where they started. Yeah. Okay. All right. That was it. Just kind of also for the Tennessee and the St. John's of it all. Like, those teams are fine. I think we've talked about St. John's and not having the panic button out for them. I think that's another way of looking at it. Okay, before we get into the mailbag, one quick shout out to Home Field Apparel. They are the best place to get your college sports gear for the college hoops season. Conference play is kicking off in earnest now, so it's a good time to stock up on some gear for your school, or just pick a logo you like, because they've got all kinds of unique ones, including retro ones, and a bevy of fantastically comfortable gear: shirts, hoodies, jackets, joggers, hats, you name it. They've got it. They've got baseball jerseys. I think they've got some hockey jerseys. Really, really cool stuff there. And so if you use promo code Burner15 at checkout, you get 15% off your first purchase. That is Burner15 at homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. All right, well, let's get into it. We're going to start at the top with the mailbag. The first question that I know I saw, I think in the Discord, you said we're going to make sure we get this one in there. Hits and misses from our preseason episodes. And obviously, we had a bunch of them, but I'll kick it over to you. What are some of the biggest hits and or misses from our preseason episodes that you that are sticking in your craw at this point?
All right, big hit that I was very proud of, and this is from user Say Goodnight. Strange name, but whatever. It feels like something you would tell somebody you're really hateful towards on the basketball court. So I get it. Biggest hit for me actually is one that I probably should have been even higher on. I think on our SEC polls, I had Vandy 5th. I remember being very high on them, almost put them 4th. And apparently I should have had them higher. I guess that is kind of a miss. Maybe I should have had them 2nd or 1st. But obviously, I think I was pretty high in Vandy. KenPom was the only other place I found that seemed to have Vandy top 5, and it's working so far. We'll see how it holds up in conference play. I have a stat on that coming in the conference play primer, which I think will go up the same day as this. Biggest miss for me, I have 2. One, I can't believe you didn't stop me from putting Cincinnati 8th in the Big 12. We both knew they couldn't score. I don't know what either of us were thinking. That was really dumb on my part. And I remember from our very first episode, top 10 defenses, I had UCLA, I think, as my 10th. That was really stupid. It was based on nothing other than Donovan Dent and Mick Cronin being paired up, which I thought would be really good. And of course, I believe at this point last season, Michigan was like 47th in defense or something. They were not like their offense was outpacing their defense. And then by the end of the year, Michigan had a top 15 unit. So it's totally plausible that UCLA, same conference, similar-ish talent, coaching style, whatever, could do the same thing. But I can't say I'm very happy with my pick at the moment. So those would be the couple that stood out for me. There's probably some others that I'm just not thinking of. But yeah,
the top 10 defenses pod really stuck out to me. That was the main one I went back to. The teams I ranked 1 through 8 on the top defenses pod are ranked 10, 12, 8, 11, 1, 5, 6, and 3 right now. So 8 of the top 12 right there. But then I had San Diego State and USC as 9 and 10, and they are 47th and 57th. And that is rather disappointing. San Diego State especially. USC's had some personnel questions, and I think them and Arizona State and really everybody that played in Maui except Seton Hall has got some tough deflation on their defensive end because of the Maui rims. But I don't know what's going on with San Diego State. The personnel that they brought back from last year, the physicality, the coach continuity, I thought for sure this would be a really good defense, and it's barely top 50 right now. And it's kind of troubling to me. They're not playing a ton faster, so it's not like they're getting exposed in transition. It's not bad 3-point luck. They're just not rebounding the ball, which they didn't last year. And the 2-point percentage defense has dropped from 8th to 107th. And that is a real concern for Dutcher. They're currently the exact same spot in KenPom as last year, 51st. But the defense is a problem. They've got to figure that out. And then on the flip side, I sure didn't expect UConn to be a top 5 defense, which is where they currently lie in KenPom. I think even UConn fans are like seeing some smoke and mirrors in that. Their 3-point percentage defense is top 5 in the country and definitely helping them out. But I just, the fact that it's kind of carried them in some big games this year has shocked me. They are a fantastic shot blocking team. I think Ryba has been an even better defensive piece than I expected to back up Terrace Reed. So that was the pod I went back to because it was like, all right, it was a perfect blend of some really good calls and some really bad ones. So I will take the wins and the losses from the top 10 defenses pod.
Yeah, I'm still pretty happy with most of my calls. Houston number 1, I think will age well. I'm aware that like right now they're 10th, which we'll see. I think they'll be fine. But like had Michigan number 2, which I was very happy with. Obviously Iowa State. Yeah, I think most of them are going to age okay.
Yeah,
but
I think so too.
I probably should have had Michigan State top 10. That was kind of dumb on my part.
Yeah, it's all right. I'm looking back right now at top 10 front courts, and I've got Florida 1, who currently ranks second nationally in defensive rebound rate and first in offensive rebound rate. I think that was not a surprising pick, but I rank Michigan 2 in front court. And I think that there was some like back and forth on whether that front court was going to work at all. But
Hmm.
with Yax's versatility and playing Mara more, that team's been awesome. And I had Arizona 3, Gonzaga 4. And I have no issues with how that's worked out either. Um, it backcourt's maybe not quite as strong. Like, why did I have Kentucky top 5? That feels dumb right now. Jalen Lowe's injury certainly contributes, but that and even just being high on. You mentioned UCLA's defense. The Donovan Dent experiment there has kind of been a dud so far. For what they paid for him, the productivity hasn't quite been there. They've almost been better when like Trent Perry and Sky Clark are running the show. So
Yeah.
that one was a bust for me as well.
Yeah, there's a few of these where it's like I still have some belief, but clearly we had some misevaluations.
Yep, definitely. All right, let's move on to the second question, which was a kind of an offshoot of a point I brought up when I think Ion College Basketball talked about taking Michigan and Arizona versus the field. But the question was, what is the fewest number of teams you would take versus the field to win the title right now? So, like, would you take the top 4 against the field, the top 5 against the field, etc.? Where did you land on this one, Will?
All right, so we're gonna go with Ken Palm. And this is Ion CBB did their own version of this, but basically you're going how deep into the field can you go before you say stop? And I believe the champion is among top these, X whatever teams. So I'm gonna go and I'll tell you where I'm stopping. I have picked the top 7 at Ken Palm. Michigan, Arizona, Gonzaga, Iowa State, Purdue, Duke, UConn. I think your champion is in those 7. I would take them over the field. Now, I will note, by doing this, I'm passing on. You have Vandy 8th, but we'll see. I kind of feel like they're at peak value right now. I am passing on BYU, which means I don't get to Bansa. I'm passing on Houston, which is a really big one for me. Uh, I haven't loved their start to the season, but I still feel like they've got a lot of room to roam there. The those two were big ones that I do wish I had. I wish I had Florida. I don't think that they're capable of a repeat, but you kind of rather have them than not. And then further down, I can't quit Texas Tech as much as I want to.
Oh, there we go. Yes.
I, I, I look through these 11 through 25 teams and I don't really see another in there that I'm like, I think they can win the title. Like, there are teams in this list that I'm like, yeah, I can definitely see them making the Final Four, but I don't see them winning 6 in a row. Texas Tech is the one just because they've got, Toppin and Anderson and Grant McCasland, who I still think is a really freaking great coach, despite the
Yep.
start to the season. That would be the one. But I do believe top 7 is where it would really lay out the line. And I think I had this point either in a recent watch list or a recent something that I think it was Christmas Day. Like every year post 2013-14 UConn, which is the combo breaker to end all combo breakers, your champion's been in the top 7 on that day. I think it was Christmas Day, but I'm not sure. Either way, I would take the top 7 right now and feel good.
Okay. I was similar thinking. I went a little riskier. I said you can have Iowa State. I'll take the other top 6. I know that's going to probably
Oh,
piss off some Cyclones fans, and I get it. I understand. But if you give me Michigan, Arizona, Gonzaga, Purdue, Duke, UConn, I feel pretty good about that. And just a mathematical support for it, looking at Bart Torvik's odds to win the national title, that would get me, those 6 teams get me to 48.4%, and his sum the odds there. UConn is actually, or Duke, excuse me, is not among the top 7. It's got Vanderbilt and Iowa State ahead of them, but 6 teams gets you really close to 50% if you take that top 6. I'm just below it, but I feel decently confident that like UConn's slightly undervalued because of their injuries. Maybe Bart's not giving. I mean, Michigan being 16.1% champions, but they're like plus 375 in the betting markets tells you that there's no value betting on them. But I do think that the numbers make sense to me there, that it gets me really, really close to 50%. And Iowa State, I could regret not having them in there, but I also think they're a little peak of value with Momcilovic shooting 100% from three. And um, teams have, I guess Big 12 play, we'll see if they continue to play quite as strongly as they have so far.
Yeah, so my question, I guess my follow-up question was going to be, and you already answered it, if you had to trade out one of your top X teams for somebody outside of it, who would it be? And so you're trading out Iowa State for, I'm assuming, no return pick. But if you had to pick a return pick, who would it be?
Yeah, I guess if it's not, so yeah, Iowa State would be the one from the top 7 I would trade out, and I think I would bring in BYU. That's the one where I'm landing, just because of the elite talent of Devanza at the top of the roster, how well he's played so far. You have the extra offense with Wright and Saunders. I'm curious if they get a little more contribution in the paint. Keita was banged up, missed a game, but he's back and looks solid. They brought in a international piece for the over the break. They were one of the teams that brought in a new big man, Abdullah Ahmed, and he played 9 minutes against Eastern Washington, 6'10" guy from Egypt. I don't know if he'll end up mattering, but I kind of like that they've got just one more reinforcement with real size in there. So BYU would be the team I'd add.
The one I would trade out, and this is going to age quite poorly, of course. I would probably drop UConn just because they're lowest. I know it's dangerous, but they've got a little bit of an injury thing going on. I don't understand what's going on there. Ball, I'm sure, will be back soon, but Reed has been in and out. Ryba has actually been pretty solid. I've been impressed with him. I just kind of question, do they have enough? I think they've got a lot, but do they have enough to push it all the way? They are going to really benefit from a crappy Big East, though.
That's very true.
So, I mean, they could... I posit in the conference play primer that I would put their baseline right now at 18-2, which is an insane thing to say. But we're going to assume that they probably lose on the road at St. John's, and then we'll just toss one other in there. Everybody says Seton Hall, but it could be Villanova, it could be Creighton again. They always seem to have trouble with Creighton.
Yeah, there's the stat about how bad they've been in Big East openers. They have more national title, or the same amount of national titles as Big East opener wins in the past 15 years or awesome. Something. But then they beat Butler, and so they quelled that worry. So yeah, they're already 2-0. I kind of like where you're at. 18 feels like the most realistic number to me.
But if I had to pick, I guess I'd trade out UConn for Houston. I can't quit Houston, even though I know a lot of people want to. They had, as we're recording this last night, I guess what we'd call an unimpressive win over MTSU. MTSU got a little lucky shooting wise, I would note. But whatever. We've had this same convo before where it's oh, Houston wasn't the sexiest team in non-conference play. Oh, they lost to San Diego State or whatever. Okay, I mean, it's about to be New Year's Day. The one loss is by 3 to a Tennessee team that's going to be a 4 seed or something on a neutral court. And I mean, looking at it, they're going to be favorites in all but 3 Big 12 games? 4? I mean, this is probably going to be a team that we look up in 2 months. It's oh shit, Houston went 26-5 and 14-4 in the Big 12. What were we all worried about?
Yeah, exactly. There's a 2 seed. Yeah, they'd be right in the mix there. And I think the performance in Arkansas before Christmas kind of reminded everybody of the ceiling, where that game was not a 9-point game. I mean, they were up double digits the entire second half, up 15-20. They were dominant on that night, and they showed off they can win in multiple ways. We know that Kelvin Sampson can coach defense, but they torched the Arkansas defense. They showed off some real offensive capabilities because Flemings just gets wherever he wants on the court. And if the shooting trends up from Uzan and the interior players start to figure out how to score, suddenly they're really scary.
And for all the fretting about oh, they don't have an LJ Cryer type this year. Well, they didn't have a Flemings type last year. I didn't really think that beyond tossing it down to Roberts or, some occasional Uzan drives last year, they didn't really have a go and get it guy at the rim. Whereas this year, you've definitely got that with Flemings. His speed is, I have a really hard time, and I'm sure somebody will remind us immediately, picking out a guard where I'm oh, that guy's faster than Kingston Flemings in the half court. Maybe end-to-end speed, like 40 time, I'm sure there's somebody faster, but like in the half court, it doesn't feel like somebody's got the acceleration burst that he has to get
Yeah,
downhill.
he looks like he's bouncing when he's just normally walking. Like there's just
Yeah.
like a electricity in his calves that you're like, okay, that guy can move at the speed of light whenever he wants to, and that quickness is so unstoppable.
Yeah.
Okay, that answers that question. Number 3 for our guy Barry Buckets. There, I said your name. Kansas State. We got to talk Kansas State defense. Will, why is the defense so bad? Is it fixable? Is it time for a new coach? Just give me the whole Kansas State breakdown.
Yeah, I just don't think that I don't think that they necessarily need a new coach right now. I still do like Jerome Tang. I do point to the fact that Baylor's defense has been kind of a turd ever since he left, which he was largely responsible for there. But I would also note, the defense at Kansas State has never been terribly good, even in the peak year with Noel and Keontae Johnson. They the gist of it to me, and I'm curious to see if you feel the same, is that they never really seem to have that identity in defense anymore. I don't really know what it is they do. Like, they don't press the perimeter, they don't really shut down post ups, they don't stop transition very well, they don't overplay or underplay attacks to the rim, they don't rebound terrifically or poorly. I guess I'm not really sure what it is Kansas State does on the defensive end, which is the problem to me. I think in the Big 12, a conference with a lot of disparate identities, you need to have an identity. And I'm not really sure what it would be that you would call Kansas State's identity right now.
Yeah,
I like that, and I know, like, for you, Missouri has for better or for worse an identity, and I know that right now it's kind of for worse, but when it works, it's for better. They have that high perimeter press that can force a lot of turnovers, does lead to a lot of open buckets at the rim, but we've seen it work. Like, we've seen that really stress some teams out. It had Tennessee's number for a few seasons there, which I thought was kind of strange. Kansas State has had some numbers in the past, but right now, it just kind of feels like they don't have a way to shut off a team's proverbial water at the rim. They don't have a way to stop teams on the boards. They don't really have a way to. I feel like this team loses a lot of one-on-one battles too, which it's good that they force one-on-one battles, but if you're going to do that, you better be good at stopping them, and they're not. So I'm not sure if that's a personnel thing. I'm not sure if because I did think last year or the year before, actually, in particular, Kansas State really misfired on their build. Everybody kind of gave Jerome Tang the he did it once, he can do it every year thing. That's never the case. I thought this year's build was baffling to begin with, so I'm not surprised it's kind of weird. But I thought that would show up more offensively than defensively, I guess.
yeah, because in my head, he is a defensive coach, and 2 things stand out to me here: losing Ulrich Malagi, the defensive coordinator, to Texas. I think that
Mm-hmm.
hurt. Like he's been a key part of building those defenses. And you kind of mentioned it. I think the personnel is just bad. Like if you're
Mm-hmm.
playing a lot of minutes with PJ Haggerty and Abdi Bashir as 2 of your 3 perimeter defenders, you're going to have a lot of straight lines to the basket. Haggerty is using so much energy offensively to get into the paint, draw contact, create for others. It's hard to ask him to be a shutdown perimeter defender. And then you have Bashir, who is like truly abhorrent as a defender. Like he can't guard anything. He's not strong enough to. He's got a little length, but that's just not the strong suit to his game. So Nate Johnson's asked to do a ton on the perimeter, and you don't really have like the enforcer at the rim. Kamari McGriff is more of like a post scorer, great finisher. He's at 74% from the field, but he's not huge. He's not a Big 12 size center. Doran Buka is not a Big 12 player. So if you've got a couple guys on the perimeter that can't keep opponents in front, and then the back line isn't like a huge towering rim protecting mass, then it's a bad sequence, and that's hurt them on the glass. Like you said, they haven't been able to establish like a pressure identity. Castillo's given them very little defensively too off the bench. To me, it's a big like personnel plus loss of key assistant thing. So I'm not sure it's solvable this season, unfortunately.
Yeah, and looking through, so the follow-up question of this from her Kansas State friend is, why wouldn't they just fire him? Well, I did look it up while you were talking. He has a nearly $19 million buyout, and that's before you factor in like assistants and staffers. So you can probably assume, what would you say, like probably closer to 23, 24 once it's all total, like the total cost of firing him.
Yeah.
And like there are ways within a contract to be like, oh, if he takes a job, that'll take off X, or if the staffers take a job, that'll take off X. We can also pay this out over however many years, but probably given that it's a contract through 2031, they would have to pay it out through those 5-ish years, I would say. So that's 4-ish million a year, something like that. That is not impossible, especially in a world where we've seen college football coaches receive, you know, buyouts of upwards of $50 million to be jobless. But college football and college basketball are two different things. I will believe we see this type of buyout, when it actually happens. So I would say like you probably have another year of him.
Yeah, the big thing too is if he's gotten donor money, like the rosters are not cheap. And if the main donors stand by him for some reason, if they look and even aren't completely turned off by the results, then he's probably going to stick around, because if they support him, the money's there. Now, if they turn off that faucet and suddenly the money's not coming in from donors, then the school might bite the bullet, or they might, instead of paying for the roster, they might pay for the buyout. But at this point, yeah, I guess I'd probably expect another season. We'll see if they're what kind of build they do this offseason, because I don't understand this year's, and I know you're with me there.
Yeah.
Okay. The fourth question. Generally speaking, the concept was, if you could trade one team's skill to another to complete a team and make that team like immensely better, what would you do? And he gave, I think this was West Pine Bills in the Discord, he gave the example of if you gave Virginia's offensive rebounding to a team in the MEAC, just how fun that would be. I took it more like at the top end of the sport, Will, but where did you go with this?
I actually went, and that was a decent example. The one that I would go with here, just because I'm curious what it would look like, is if you gave Seton Hall good 3-point shooting or just good offense in general. So like, let's give Seton Hall Kansas State's 39.9% from three. How much better and how much more fun would that team be? Because Seton Hall's defense is obviously elite. They're 13th right now at Ken Palm. The rare, I would have to think this might be the only time in history without looking it up. Number one block percentage, number one steal percentage. Usually you're number one in one and like 140th in the other. That does not happen where you do both. So a truly once in a lifetime elite defense. Now, if only they could score. Now imagine, yeah, I know. Basketball, weird sport to say this, but imagine if you could score points in basketball. That'd be kind of strange, wouldn't it?
It would help.
Yeah, I'd never seen that before. Now, it doesn't even have to be an elite number like Colorado State 44%. That'd be one thing. But even if you gave them like Vandy's number of 37.6, Seton Hall would be infinitely more threatening for March purposes if you were like, oh, this team has all these defensive metrics and they shoot 38% from three. That would be a team we'd be talking about as like a 4 seed, and not like where we're at right now, where it's like, oh, maybe Seton Hall can wear home uniforms in the round of 64. I
Yeah.
think that would be where I'd go with this.
And to your point, not only have they not made shots, but they're 352nd in 3-point attempt rate. So they just don't have shooters. So you give them actual shooting ability, and suddenly, yeah, that team is way more potent offensively, and it goes with that extremely fun defense. Yeah, I went like mega elite here. This is probably just not even fair. It's bullying the sport, but I'm giving Purdue Iowa State's perimeter defense. So suddenly they can pressure the ball and heat the ball up the way Iowa State can. And Purdue's already got the number one offense in the country. They've already got a great interior defense with Jacobson, with Clough. Like, that has been way reinforced compared to last year. We've talked about it on stats already. If suddenly they can heat up the ball and crank up the turnover rate and lean on some more of that Jacobson shot blocking inside, I don't know what the weakness is there. Like, the fact that they already have a top 20 defense is really impressive. I think Iowa State, funnily enough, is one of the teams that lit up that defense. But if you give them the kind of pressure that Lipsy and Toure, like, I'm not trading those players to them, but just giving like Braden Smith and CJ Cox the ability to cook on ball then suddenly Purdue is terrifying to me, and I think would become like the national title favorite or just behind Michigan or something. Would be way up there. So that's the rich getting richer, and that's not what we think of the holiday season as. But that's how I took the question. So you're welcome, Purdue, for the new ball pressure.
I like it.
Okay. Next question: best offensive coordinators in the sport. I believe this is from Isaac Trotter, host emeritus of this very podcast. Will, what did you go with here? I mean, there's some that are well documented. There's some staffs where you don't know who's exactly responsible for the offense, but I do have a couple names. I'll let you lead it off, though.
I try to go with the latter, more like, coaching staffs where it's not entirely clear, but you can kind of get some good context clues. The way I do this, honestly, is just by reading the staff bios, because if it's mentioned in there that, if you see like a lot of numbers like, oh, field goal percentage was up because of them, or 3-point percent, like they're the offensive guy. They're, whether it's an analytics thing or they're, actually coaching, like calling out stuff like Burgomaster at Auburn, they're the offense guy. So one guy I have not seen talked about much is John Cremens at Vandy. I'm going to double check here in real time. I don't think he is the son of one Bobby Cremens or related to Bobby Cremens, but I might be wrong there.
Okay, I don't actually know for sure, so I can't confirm or deny that idea.
But he's been Byington's guy since his time at Georgia Southern, and consistently gets mentioned for the reason for offensive turnarounds at these schools, and now is responsible for, at least in some part, Vandy having what's at least going to be a top 5 offense by year's end. I would say currently 8th at Ken Pom, but slight reduction. I think they'll be fine. And that's been because like Frankie Collins has a meniscus issue. Duke Miles missed the last game. They'll be okay. But he strikes me as a guy who's going to be in position for a bigger job soon, or like his own job in the near future. Does maintain an active presence on LinkedIn, which I find worrying. I don't think you should be doing that as a coach. Get offline. But good for him. Like, that's great. Coached under a guy named Dickie Nutt at Southeast Missouri State.
That's
not
a
related to
University of Missouri staffer, Dickie Nutt.
Yeah, Dickie Nutt. We should have him on the show. But has been a head coach before, I believe, at the NAIA ranks, if I recall correctly. But Cremens is very good. One guy I've never seen mentioned at all online is Jonathan Holmes at Miami of Ohio. Travis Steele, not known for offense. This guy, Holmes, has been there for the last 2 or 3 seasons, and Miami of Ohio's offense has really taken off. And I don't think it's a coincidence. Seems to be the reason that like Peter Suter is playing really well, and that entire Miami of Ohio group is really up offensively. Their spacing is so much better the last couple of seasons. I'm going to wager that he might be a key reason. Less so than perhaps Travis Steele turning over like this huge new leaf where he's suddenly like an offensive guru. Not that Travis Steele is bad. I think, he deserves a second chance at, some sort of high major, but I think Holmes might be the secret sauce there.
I like that kind of backing into, well, I'm going to give this guy credit for it. I sort of did that with 1 or 2 of the ones I mentioned here, but I like those answers. I didn't know what to do with like the staff at Michigan, Bama, like Baylor. I got to give credit to Scott Drew because he's like lost multiple assistants and the offense has stayed elite. Like I thought Jacobs, the one at FAU, was kind of the key there. And nope, it's another elite offense this year at Baylor. So I'm giving Scott Drew credit. Louisville, Pat Kelsey, I think has been an offensive guy throughout his career. But Burgomaster's a good mention. Jeff Linder at Texas Tech was a head coach at Wyoming, had 2 top 100 offenses, something that hasn't been done there in like 20 years. Now he's at Texas Tech. They've got 2 top 15 offenses in his tenure, including 5th last year. I think he's really brilliant. Todd Abernathy at Georgia really revolutionized their offense this year, completely upgraded their tempo. He was at FAU under Dusty May and stayed under Jacobs last year. But first year at Georgia, he's done great. And I think he's partially responsible for the Owls offenses. And then one name I think both Illinois and Gonzaga fans will nod knowingly, Stephen Gentry, assistant that's been at both schools. Gonzaga's been great at offense before Gentry was there and probably will be good on offense long after he's gone. But I think he's a really, really smart mind. He had some good adjustments at Illinois when they had Desumu and Coburn inside. So I wanted to mention them. And then I was looking at Oklahoma, Will, and I saw Josh Oppenheimer, and I had to give him a shout out because he was,
that's an incredible name.
yeah, mostly known for skill development, I think, rather than offensive scheme. But he was a big Giannis guy at for the Bucks. So as a Milwaukee Bucks fan myself, Oppenheimer was a big part of the development of Giannis in Milwaukee. So I'm going to give him a little bit of credit for Oklahoma's excellent offense this year. Don't look at what they're doing on defense, but offensively they are rock solid. So I'm sure we missed some names. Isaac, you can fill in the blanks there. Isaac knows staffs probably even better than you or I do, but those are some ones.
Isaac and Kevin Sweeney, I think, would have some really good submissions for this. Mine are just a little more contextual, I have to say.
Yep, for sure. And I know like Wake Forest and Providence both brought in guys this offseason that have helped. No doubt about it. Their offenses have gotten better. So tip of the cap to them as well. All right, the next question. Which non-St. Louis team in the Atlantic 10 has the best shot to win a game in the NCAA tournament? So basically, let's say SLU goes on a tear in the A10, loses in the A10 tournament. Who should the A10 hope wins the tournament instead of SLU to give them the best shot at a win? What did you say here, Will?
I think it's VCU. Not like obvious, but I would give them the edge over Dayton and GMU, and I guess George Washington as well. They have a bit more escape velocity offensively than I'm used to from VCU. Nothing like otherworldly, but I mean, against Virginia Tech, which I know Virginia Tech's defense is bad, but stay with me here. 86 points in 71 possessions is pretty darn good. Beat South Florida by 12 in a neutral. None of their losses are really shameful, too. I know a home loss to New Mexico is a bit of a bummer, but it's by 3. Like, whatever. I'm not really going to be sweating bullets over that. Nobody's ashamed by losing to Utah State or NCSU or Vandy. Positive turnover margin, positive to a rebounding margin, really strong on the offensive boards, like in a way VCU hasn't been in a while. They limit opponent three-point attempts very well. They seem to have a little more room to roam defensively too. I believe that like if they got, and this is potentially fool's gold because I felt the same way last year. If they got in a one-off in the NCAA tournament, I would like their odds to pull off a mild shocker. I don't think it'd be really stunning because they're, as I'm speaking, 42nd at KenPom, but I feel the best out of them out of the other options. I would actually put, strangely enough, George Mason third on this list. Defensively, they've got some upside to muck a game up and make it really ugly, which, is not really what I want for watchability in the tournament. But if you're trying to win a game, like you could do worse than picking a team that can win games 61-58.
So I have a extremely similar answer here. VCU 2, and I actually went with George Mason 3. VCU, yeah, the talent level is just so high. Tyrell Ward, I thought might be their best player coming in the season. He's been useless, like barely playing in the last few games, and they still have arguably the best backcourt in the league. Terrence Hill and Nick Lewis, if you count JJ and Tracy in the backcourt, which I kind of do. Jennings, Ahmad Noel was a top 50 recruit at UConn. He's played really well of late, had a big game against Rider. I think that upside is really, really high. I don't know if Christian Furman is out for the year, 6'10 center that I think drove a couple VCU fans nuts, but he gives them another shot blocker, offensive rebounder. If they get him back, that would help a little bit. But man, just like the depth, the athleticism, I think the ceiling is the highest there of the non-SLU teams. The style, up and down might not be as exciting if they played like, last year they get BYU in the tournament. If they're playing up tempo against a team that's really talented, that concerns me. And that's why I like George Mason. Like you said, it's a really connected team. Tony Skinn just had those comments in the media about like, we don't recruit people that aren't going to be a part of the system. Like he makes a really big point of that. Like we want the personalities to fit. And I think the team, it shows when you watch them, they're really connected. They play together. They're very comfortable in a half court game. And I think that plays well in the postseason, as you mentioned. So we are actually in lockstep there. Sorry to George Washington and the Dayton Flyers, who will probably be loud in the comments telling us we're wrong.
Yeah, GMU, I do think that we just don't know anything about them really. They are 349th in schedule strength at the moment, and the one good team they've played, they lost to. But still, I like them a lot. Like you said, good half court team. The fact that they're so good at getting to the line and so good at avoiding fouls on the other end does lean into like you can just kind of picture them as like a 12 seed, and the 5 is just like getting really annoyed as the game goes on. And the coach is sweating through his shirt, yelling at the officials. And it's like, oh, how does this 12 seed have 12 more free throw attempts than their opponent? That's
Yeah,
that's how I could see it happening.
I'm thinking back to, was it 2024? Keith Dambrot's team. It wasn't built quite the same, but they beat BYU in a game where, Duquesne kind of limited possessions and forced BYU to play on the perimeter, and was able to not dominate the paint, but they shot better from two than BYU did in that game. And I could see George Mason having that same kind of like, all right, they're just kind of this annoyance, this gnat that won't go away, and we can't out talent them because they won't let us run. I like that perspective for George Mason.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next up, number 7. Based on the extension of elite teams up at the top of the sport, are those teams better than normal years, or are the median average teams worse? Is that what's actually extending the tail? That is the question. Well, I'm curious what you think. Hopefully I worded that well. If you want to readjust the framing, please do for the listener.
This is from Twitter. I don't remember who sent it in, but I would say both, actually. I kind of think it's a little bit of both. The elite teams are getting more talent. Like, you have to think about it from this perspective of, let's say 2022 even. I don't think you have to even go very far back. If Yaxel Lendeborg had entered his name in the portal or whatever in 2022, I think he would have gone to the NBA draft. Because the NIL money really wasn't that much. I know that like the first big one I remember was Johnny Juzang coming back for UCLA after that Final Four run. But even so, that wasn't for that much NIL money. It would have been, I don't even think it would have been 7 figures. Lendeborg probably goes to the NBA, picked like what, 34th or something.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So not even a guaranteed contract, but it's like, it's money, more money than he would have earned in college. That player doesn't go to Michigan. In 2025-26, that player goes to Michigan, he's earning a lot of freaking money at U of M this year, right? Like $3 million or something.
Yep, at least. Yeah, I think he's way up there.
JT Toppin goes pro. A lot of these guys would not be on their teams this year. Like Christian Anderson might have gone pro. It's plausible. Jacoby Gillespie, I don't know. Well, Jacoby Gillespie probably just follows his coach to wherever, but
yeah,
he wouldn't get the same amount of money to go to Tennessee. So I think that is leading to an extension of teams out from the pack at the top. And because of that, the transfer from the median teams is leading those to become worse. We have seen this a little bit, this discussion of like a Cinderella dead. And I think I need another tournament or two to really narrow in my thoughts on that, of if it's true or not. But we're just, looking ahead this year at our top, like I go true mid-majors in the sense of like not Gonzaga, not St. Mary's, and kind of not Mountain West, though I would hear out an argument for like a Utah State or whatever. Like your best shot beyond the St. Louis tier at like multiple wins is South Florida.
Yeah. Yale, I don't know.
And South Florida kind of strikes me as like, do you remember like the Bruce Pearl team from Milwaukee in the 2000s? Where it's like, it was really cool that they made the Sweet 16, but they never would have gone further than the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
That's how that's like where I feel we're at in college basketball right now, where it's like, I look at this and it's like, yeah, McNeese or South Florida, or I mean, like Akron, maybe we'll see. But I look at these teams as like, it'd be awesome if these teams made the Sweet 16. But I think the days for now of like a VCU or George Mason, or hell, like a St. Peter's going from the 15 seed to the Elite Eight, those kind of feel gone right now. And I don't know how we get them back.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult because of, like you mentioned, the talent at the top. And, a guy like Lendeborg is benefiting from the Diego Pavia rule, where he like shouldn't have gotten eligibility, but or shouldn't have been eligible this year, but he got the extension on that because of junior college. The one other thing I thought is contributing to like the super elite teams is that roster builds can be so specific now, like from a year to year. Like you're not just subject to mostly the talent you have, and you're recruiting guys hoping they're eventually pieces. Like the way coaches can build a roster and pick out specific skills and talents from the portal and piece them together, complementary players. I think that makes a huge, huge difference. Like Michigan is such a perfect example of this right now. Where like you get these big guys, you're like, oh man, can that actually work? Can they fit with? Do they have the right guards? And like Dusty May is able to just build a monster in the paint. And you look at like Florida last year, the way they filled in the gap on the perimeter by bringing in Elijah Martin to a team that was already really good, or Duke brings in Mason Gillis and Sion James to go with awesome talent that they already have. Like I think the portal has helped these rich teams get even richer, not just by stars, but by the way they're able to fill in the blanks around some of their pieces. Arizona didn't really use the portal this year. They're more operating off like the international edition of Karchenkov and freshmen. Iowa State also benefiting from that. Their portal additions, besides Buchanan, haven't been overly big contributors, but I just think being able to build your teams specifically and be able to seek out, I've got a weakness here. Let me fill it in with the portal. That has helped the elite teams get even better. And to your point, average teams, just it's hard to retain talent when you're at that level. So I think it's both to extend the range of outcomes for teams.
Well, and the thing that it reminds me most of is the soccer system in Europe. And, like we don't really have it, I would say, in the MLS yet. Maybe we'll get there one day. But in Europe, you can have a team, like, for example, if Brentford, are you aware of the Premier League much? I don't recall.
The Bees? Oh, yeah. I follow
Okay,
Premier
good.
League. Yep.
I remember that you are a soccer guy, right? In some aspect?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, good. You understand a real sport. But like if the Bees finished fourth and they got a Champions League bid and all of that, we would guess sight unseen that like 7 of their starting 11 would be on a Manchester City or a Liverpool or a Inter Milan the next season. They would be bought out. And then they would go right back to finishing like 12th or 13th in the Premier League like they usually do. They'd be like a scrappy team that avoids relegation. That's kind of where we're at, where like I don't know that we're going to see an FAU again in the coming years unless something changes, because the plus side of being a Brentford in the Premier League is you get the transfer fees. You get like all the money coming your way to buy out those players. The players still get paid, obviously. They get huge contracts. Like they earn, £1 million a week or whatever. But I don't know what that converts to in USD anymore. I've lost the sauce for finance, but
that's okay.
But in college sports, unless you get like a really generous coach or player who's like, hey, have some of my money, those like, for example, I was looking at some stuff this week and like Colgate's Jalen Cox has been awesome. Jalen Cox is probably I don't know, he may be really loyal to Colgate. Who knows? Maybe he loves upstate New York, but he's probably going to transfer in 3 months to somewhere that's going to pay him more money, that's going to give him a featured role as a senior, because he is that good. He's clearly the best player in the Patriot League. He is going to earn more money and like get a bigger star and get the payday that he can't at Colgate. How much money of that is going to Colgate? $0.00.
Yep.
And until we have like some sort of transfer system or some sort of like contractual obligation to have these teams get the money that they deserve, I don't really know how that works. That's, beyond my talents and beyond my pay grade. This is kind of going to be how it is for a while.
Yep. Yeah. It's just kind of the state of the sport, unfortunately. So that's, it's fun for like, having elite teams, but for those that want the deep Cinderella runs, it's going to be harder and harder to find, I think. And last year was a great example.
If you like the Champions League, it's great. And I do like the Champions League a lot. I think it's really cool. Like once we get down to the final 16 and 8, and it's like, for whatever reason, we always know Real Madrid is going to be in it, even if they look like garbage. But it's really fun. Like it makes the surprise runs like Monaco a few years ago that much more special when you get them. But you do kind of go into it knowing like your final is going to be 2 of about 6 teams every year. And so I'm getting a little fearful of that coming over to college basketball, where it's like your final is going to be 2 of about 8 to 10 every single season, as long as those teams don't screw up the roster build.
Kentucky, we're looking at you this year. Maybe we'll see. All right. Next question. Do you have any anti-Ewing players? The Ewing theory, team gets better when the player is not on the court or when he's hurt. That's the general concept of it. So are there any players that are better when the rest of the team plays poorly? Do you have an answer here?
I kind of feel like this is the Ewing theory, no? Like when this
Or
play, like in a way, like when this player goes away, this team is better.
yeah, like their best games come when the team plays poorly, and I feel like AJ Store was the immediate come to mind for me.
Yeah.
I have one other good
Let me
example.
hit you with
Do you?
one that I
Okay,
haven't really seen
perfect.
people mention. Malik Dia. I feel like Ole Miss would be better if Malik Dia played less
Ooh, okay.
because I don't think he's a winning basketball player. I think that last year they were clearly, to me, better when Sean Padula took the main role, and like when they were just like trying to cook with Malik Dia, it was just kind of like let's get is we're it was like a 10-minute song that runs out of ideas about 4 minutes in, and you're like, well, let's go ahead and get this. I need you to finish off these final 6 minutes. Like when they were going with Padilla, or God, when they were going with Jamin Breakfield, I enjoyed Ole Miss way more. When it's Malik Dia time, I don't think anybody enjoys that but Malik Dia. So that
Yeah.
would
Oh,
be my
Malik Dia
answer to
loves
this.
Malik Dia time. It's funny that he's on the same team as AJ Store. We both mentioned Ole Miss players to start this off.
Man, what an
Uh,
unenjoyable freaking team to watch.
yeah. Ugh. The other name that came to mind for me it was Diggy Coit at Maryland, and I looked
Mm.
at it and it actually kind of worked out. In their last 3 wins, he's had 15 combined points, but in their losses, he had 15 against Virginia, 31 against Michigan, 13 against Iowa. I think there's something to when they let Diggy chuck, it doesn't work very well. And granted, those teams are all really good. There's no shame in losing to them. I'm not going to like dunk on Maryland for that. But when he goes 0 for 2 from the field against Old Dominion and they win by 15, that tells me a little something. Like I think there's a little too much on him from the roster build to just let him throw up shots. And when they don't have to do that, when they're able to manufacture stuff other ways, they're a better team. Sorry to Diggy Coit for that. Another one, like I don't. Again, this more Ewing theory itself or anti-Ewing theory? But Xavier Booker at UCLA,
Mm.
like when he's playing well, it's typically because it's bad competition, and he's gotten buried recently. 3 minutes against Cal Poly, I think he got banged up in that game. 13 against UC Riverside, but in the losses, he's had double figures in every game because they've needed him, and that tells you when you need Xavier Booker, it's not probably going to go well. You need a better player than that if you're going to be relying on him. So that's been a problem for UCLA, and a second time in this podcast that we're talking down to the poor Bruins.
One additional one I did just think of is Desmond Claude at Washington.
Ooh, great one.
I I feel like when he's on the court, Washington is markedly worse because the offense seems to flow through him and not through like Zoom Diallo, who's kind of awesome, or Wesley Yates, or even Kwamari Peterson, who hasn't taken on as much of a role as I would like. But when it's Desmond Claude time, I just find it really unenjoyable. He's not a good shooter right now. He takes a lot of really crappy mid-range shots that are just like seem to bring the flow of the Washington offense to a halt. Like when my theory is based on like when he's off the court, Washington simply looks more cohesive offensively, and when he's on it, they look very one-dimensional and rattled. And like I don't know, they kind of seem very reliant on like let's go pound the boards and get every offensive rebound we can. Like if your goal is to beat Texas A&M, that's fine, or Texas A&M from last year, I mean. But I kind of don't think that's Washington's goal or strength or anything they should be aiming for.
No, yeah, he's when they got him late in the portal, it was kind of a do you really need him? Like, and they've
Mm.
had injuries, so it's probably been somewhat helpful to have him around. But yeah, he's highly productive, puts up numbers, and yet he's in the 25th percentile and on-off rating this year per CBB Analytics. So I think the impact isn't overly strong for him, especially on the defensive end too. I'm not sure he's leaving it all out there on the defensive end. All right, next question. What program would you most want to see an unedited off-season documentary from? Oh, we're getting the
Memphis.
hard knocks of college hoops. Oh, Memphis right
Memphis.
away.
I don't think we
Okay.
need any other answers. Memphis. I want to see everything. I want to see. I want to understand what they do in practice from August to October. I want to understand what happens in the coach's room that makes every coach leave every offseason. I want to hear it. I want to know. I'm fascinated by whatever it is that's going on there.
Man, this is good too because they've got personalities typically every season on the roster, and to go with Penny, that's a great answer. I like your answer more than mine. I wrote down Arizona State question mark for
Ooh,
Hurley and
that's a good one too.
some of the personalities there. And then St. John's would have been fun because Rick tells it like it is. Sometimes, and others, like he's pretty much negative all the time. So sometimes he's just like lying, being negative. But they also have some strange personality meshes in the backcourt, and as they've tried to figure out who their point guard is, I think that would have been entertaining. And it's St. John's in New York. That's a big brand. But Memphis is a really fantastic answer. I got to give you credit.
I'm trying to think of what the most boring one would be. And it kind of has to be Northwestern. I cannot think, and this is no diss to Northwestern, but I cannot think of a single thing about like a Northwestern basketball offseason documentary that would get me to watch it.
Yeah, that's not good. I mean, UCF has every once in a while been a very fun one because of the personalities, and like last year you had the Mikey Williams, all that drama going on. But yeah, Northwestern is fairly vanilla. Butler would be kind of vanilla as well. I think that not a lot going on. Thad Matta is just like a general nice guy. He's not going to give you a lot of clips.
What would the Northwestern documentary feature?
Oof,
It would be like, hey, here's a new analytic we introduced in practice today. And that's a 90-second episode, and that's the end of the series. Like they're just like a good program. It's fine. I don't need them to be amazing or like, super entertaining or whatever, but like they're just there, and that's good for them.
Yeah, that's progress for what they used to be. But yeah. Okay, number 10. What's the most wrong you've been on a coaching hire in the last 5 years, positively or negatively? I'll let you go first. I've certainly got a couple.
I definitely have a few. The one that instantly sprung to mind was that I thought Craig Smith was an A+ home run hire by Utah.
Yeah,
I
I wrote him down too.
loved his work at Utah State. Thought he was brilliant. And I guess this is before we kind of knew Utah State as the head coach incubator of the sport. But even so, I still think he's had as impressive a tenure as anybody has there. And it just didn't connect for him at Utah. I think NIL definitely played a factor there. He had a really injury-filled season. Was it 2023-24, where they started off really well, and they kept getting injured, couldn't find the sauce. I really disagreed with the decision to fire him. I thought it was a terrible firing call, and I don't know. So far this season, it doesn't look like they're any better. I feel like they're clearly worse than they were last year. We'll give the new guy some time to find his footing, but I thought it was a bad decision to fire him. Maybe that's just bias on my part, but I thought he would be very good and that Utah would be like a yearly or at least every other yearly NCAA tournament presence. One that I was wrong on in a different way, I thought it was very dumb, and this is not a hiring decision, it was actually a non-firing decision. I thought Nebraska very clearly should have fired Fred Hoiberg after 2022-23. There was no progress being made to my eyes. I know that they had like a decent finish to that year, and that kind of seemed to be the reason they brought him back. And it's good they did because it's clearly worked out. But 4 years where the best finish was 94th at KenPom, I thought was very obviously enough to get rid of him. And they didn't. And it's worked out. So I was wrong on that one.
Yeah, they kept losing bye games every year. It was like twice a year they'd be epitome of brutality tweeted, and it's like, all right, where's this going? But now they've had 3 straight top 50 teams. Craig Smith, definitely one I wrote down. I mean, he was great at South Dakota, also like the best coach that school has had. Awesome at Utah State. Thought that would work. So I was shocked that didn't work out. Right now, and I guess jury's a little still out, but Micah Shrewsbury might be number 1 for me. I was so sure he was going to rock at Notre Dame after what he did at Penn State, and just the brilliance I thought he had in terms of like scheme and set plays and having the Matt Painter DNA in his game. So that, like, the fact that he hasn't even gotten close to the top 50 yet at Notre Dame is a bummer to me. Steve Forbes is another one I thought would be a home run hire. Just hasn't worked at Wake, not making the tournament at all there. and sort of in the other direction where I thought this guy would just be like fine, and he's been incredible, as TJ Otzelberger. Like I thought he'd be okay hire. Did not win at UNLV, and I know he had good ties to the Iowa State athletic department, but like his South Dakota State tenure, you could be like, oh, it was a lot of Mike Daum being one of the best mid-major players of all time, and now he's got Iowa State as a top 10 team, top 5 right now. They've been outstanding for 4 or 5 straight years. So that one, I didn't see it coming to be this good. So credit to them.
Mm-hmm. Now, I liked it when it happened, but like you said, I never would have thought of them as a top 5 team. I thought he'd get them to be like pretty good and, like top 25 ish in the Big 12. Yep. I never thought it'd be like this.
Yeah. The first year, okay, hey, they make the tournament. A little bit Cinderella run to the Sweet 16, second year 6 seed, but then 2 seed, 3 seed, in line for a 1 seed right now. Like, yeah, that's an incredible run for Iowa State. Little ties to.
I'll go with like a couple dipping a little further back. I did think Wes Miller would for sure be better at Cincinnati. I've been a little, surprised negatively by that. And I would definitely say I've expected more from Mike Young at Virginia Tech. I thought that was a great hire when it happened. And I thought that, like the year they had in 2021-22, when they were a top 25 team that had some negative close game luck and needed to win the ACC tournament to get in, I thought they'd be better for sure.
So if I'm putting on my detective hat here, SoCon hires, Forbes, Young, Wes Miller. Yeah.
The SoCon, we might have a blind spot on for sure.
It's a fun league to watch, but it's a different style of basketball. That's why they are like 1 or 2 in 3-point attempt rate every year. It's not an athleticism based league. I guess it's maybe hard to adapt. And if you out athlete teams in that league, the way Forbes teams did, the way I think Wes Miller's teams did, maybe that doesn't translate up very well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, number 11. Call your shot. What team with currently a 90% chance or higher to make the tourney actually will not do that? Will not do so. I used the Bart Torvik Tourney Cast to find teams with a 90% chance to get in. I came up with 2, Will, but I'm going to let you go first.
Can I read off the teams, if you don't mind?
Yeah,
this is a long list, but I think it is 29 teams right now that are at 90% or better at large to make the tournament.
Okay.
And this is in order: Michigan, Arizona, Iowa State, Duke, UConn, Purdue, Gonzaga, Vandy, Houston, Bama, Louisville, Illinois, BYU, Kansas, Michigan State, Tennessee, UNC, Florida, Nebraska, St. John's, UVA, Iowa, Texas Tech, Arkansas, NC State, Indiana. I lost my place. Indiana, Villanova, Clemson, and Utah State, interestingly. Now, this question is from our beloved Dan the Man, who did come out of hiding recently. He brought it up because 2 years ago at this time, I called my shot on Memphis missing the NCAA tournament when I think they were like 10th in the AP poll. And I was just like, look, they're like 55th in KenPom. This isn't happening. Things are due the other way. And I got lucky. Let's be honest. It was very lucky to get that call right. But it has stood the test of time as one of my better ones. But that's the source of this question. There are a couple different ways you can go about this. And I go about this because 3 years running, actually, at Torvik, a team on New Year's Day of a given year that's at 90% or better, it's actually 2 teams every season at 90% or better, has missed the tournament.
Wow.
So odds are 2 of these teams in that 29 won't be in your field of 68, which is kind of crazy to think about right now, but it will probably happen. So I am going to go. Oh, Jesus.
Come on, make an enemy, Will. Do it. Make 2 enemies.
Making the Tina noise from Bob's Burgers.
Yeah, I'm watching a lot of that lately, so that's very funny.
What a great freaking show. The Christmas episodes are so good.
So good. It's a fantastic show.
My wife didn't remember the Bourbon song, The Spirits of Christmas.
I'm not even to there. I started from the very beginning.
Oh, you got to hear that. I think it's when they there's like an ice rink at the shopping mall. That episode.
Okay.
Legends of the Show know what I'm talking about. I am going to go. and I don't like this pick at all. Clemson. I'm going to say Clemson is one. Then I'm going to call my shot on. And Jesus, this is a dangerous one. I'm going to say we get a shocker every year. I hate that I'm doing this. Nebraska.
Oh no. Oh no.
I don't think this actually happens, but we get a shocker every year. And when I'm looking at these teams that are like 96% or higher to get in, every year, like the last 3 years, we've had a team at 97% or above that missed.
Wow. Wow.
You might
Okay.
recall, you remember Xavier from like 2 or 3 years ago, who was 100% to make the field
Oh my
and
God. That team laid
didn't,
eggs down there. Yeah.
and that got Travis Steele fired. Uh, I really don't. Actually, I'm not going to pick Nebraska. Erase. Well, I can't do that to my beloved Huskers. I'm going to chicken out. I'm actually going to go a funnier one. Arkansas.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Let's say Arkansas. Arkansas's shot volume metrics are really putrid for who they've played.
Yeah,
And
they've had some pretty awesome home efforts, but
they can't
outside of that,
suppress shot volume on defense at all. They are horrible at rebounding defensively against good competition.
that's going to be one to
Not good at
watch.
rim protection. Those
All
are my
right.
picks: Clemson and Arkansas.
I like it. Okay, I'm going Utah State. Sorry
Okay.
to the Aggies. They have only played one Q1 game so far, and they lost it. And they've got a Mountain West schedule to build the resume. They're a team that's going to have to rely on WAB versus like the actual quadrant numbers looking good. And you drop a couple in the altitude of the Mountain West, and suddenly it gets really, really dicey. NC State actually kind of makes sense here because it just hurts me because I picked them preseason Final Four. I'm not going to say them. I'm actually going to go Indiana instead of NC State. Hoosiers' biggest win right now is Kansas State at home. Am I excited about that? No. They're outside the top 55 in WAB. Notably, so is NC State, and St. John's is right there too. So not meaningfully different between them, but Indiana going into the Big Ten gauntlet with kind of a fading interior rotation. They're playing a ton of Alexis, and Bailey is almost falling out of the rotation entirely. At least he did for a game. I'm not sure they hold up in a really good Big Ten. Like, it's a really tough schedule. Can they get the big wins they need to move the needle? I'm not sure they've got the upside to do that, other than like, one or two games they'll bomb in some threes. But that's one I'll say, like, right down around that 90% cutoff line to go with Utah State. I'm not bold enough to say Nebraska, but I'll say the Hoosiers.
So if you were just going on like the two teams lowest ranked at KenPom right now, which was kind of my theory when I did the Memphis thing 2 years ago, the two lowest in this 90% brigade are Clemson and Indiana. So we did cover those two.
Okay.
Third lowest of them is Utah State, fourth lowest Arkansas, fifth lowest NC State.
All right, so we just cherry picked those. Yeah, smart. Yeah. Look at us go.
Yeah, look at us go. The one that we didn't cover that I'm a little surprised neither of us brought up is Villanova, but I do think that just by virtue of playing in the Big East, they're going to accumulate enough wins.
Yeah, I'm looking back to see. I mean, what was Pitt on January 1st last year? Are you? I don't know if I know how to filter that, but they were 12-2 and 3-0 in the league with win at Ohio State. West Virginia win looked decent. Neutral win over LSU looked okay at the time because LSU was still not bombing in the SEC. And then they were horrible in ACC play. And they were 24th at KenPom at the time. I don't know who this year I could see doing that, whether it's Nebraska, North Carolina, even hesitant to say, but somebody like Iowa, who's just bullied bad competition so far this year. But yeah, Pitt was one last year that probably was up near that 90% mark.
So I'll do a quick filter for you. Last year was Pitt. They were 94% to make it on New Year's Day and failed.
Okay.
They were 23rd. Other thing to note is usually one or two from the KenPom top 25 missed. So last year, 23rd Pitt, 25th Cincy both missed. 2023-24 on New Year's Day, we had Villanova, who was 22nd, missed the field. And then amongst teams that were 90% or above, and this is just for context for fans, Utah. Do you remember Utah being 99% likely to make the field?
Oh man, yeah. There's our
And
Craig
this was
Smith
this
guy.
was before they had Injury City strike them down, to be fair.
Yep.
So they got injured all
Poor
the
Craig
hell.
Smith.
Villanova was 95%. Ohio State in Holtman's next to last, nope, final season was 93%.
Okay, and then just lost all the close games in Big Ten play. Yep, I do
They
recall
had
that.
3-point variance kill them. 2022-23, the two big ones, Rutgers 92%, and poor Jesus, Ohio State 96%. So
Oh man.
every year we get about, we'll say on average, two in this brigade that miss it.
Okay, well there you go. There you have it, folks. Unfortunately,
The
there's
more
some
fun
doom
one
and
is
gloom
like
coming.
which crappy team makes it as an at-large. And the best one from 2022-23 is Texas A&M going from 0.7% to make it all the way to a
Oh
7
wow.
seed.
There, buzzball. Can Maryland do that this year? We'll see. I wouldn't anticipate it, but okay. Great question there.
Mm-hmm.
Last question, Will, before we do a very quick Willstradamus section where you tell us what's going to happen Tuesday night. The top 3 airports in the country, going off the basketball path here. You probably travel a little more than I do, but I've got some thoughts. What do you got here?
I don't know. I feel like you travel a lot too, or maybe you don't. I don't know your life. The problem is like we grew up going to the same ones. So my dad is a Spirit Airlines lifer,
Oh,
and for a
wow.
long time, really shitty airline. Uh, I saw recently that they had like 2 weeks of funds left, and apparently maybe they got like bailed out by a VC or something, but they had like 2 weeks of funds to go. And it was like, oh, if you're flying Spirit Airlines on January 7th, you might not make your flight. But we would fly out of Atlanta a lot, and Atlanta is like below average to me. So I have the most experience there. BNA I really hate right now. Nashville's airport, it's getting worse before it gets better. I would say my top 3, I have 2 locks. Minneapolis and Detroit are terrific airports. Minneapolis, very convenient, very easy to get through. I really enjoy traveling through there. Detroit, highly underrated. 2 McDonald's. This is a big thing for me. And I've mentioned this in the Discord previously. Every airport in America should have a McDonald's. I don't want sit down food in an airport. I don't want anything fancy. I want my slop and I want it now and I want it fast. Like if I'm hungry in an airport, I don't want my choices to either be like a Ruby Tuesday like it is in Knoxville or that stupid like it's Hudson News, like the convenience store you can get 1 bars or like whatever protein bars they have.
Yeah.
I don't want that crap. Like that's terrible. Like Knoxville is a really bad offender. Our 3 restaurants are Ruby Tuesdays, which I don't know if you've been to one in 25 years, but they still suck. Quiznos. Did you know that Quiznos still exists? And we have
I
one.
haven't seen many of them in recent. That's shocking.
Please guess the third. It is a dessert-based restaurant.
Auntie Anne's or Cinnabon?
Cinnabon. Those are your 3 choices in the Knoxville airport. Awful.
Yeah.
They're supposedly adding a 4th, and it might be Subway for all I care. And that could elevate it to number 1 in the Knoxville airport restaurant rankings.
Need it badly. Oh boy.
Okay, so my third, I was really stuck between 2. West Pine Bills really wanted me to mention O'Hare, which I would have had in contention. O'Hare is good. I don't believe it is like truly astonishing or amazing, but it is clearly better than Midway to me. Midway's more convenient for sure and like easier to get through, but O'Hare's got more options. I've never had trouble with security at O'Hare. Some people I know run into problems there, but I've never really had an issue. Pretty easy to get through. The one that I never hear mentioned that is a great airport is Orlando International. Really?
Okay.
Yeah, Orlando International has a SkyTrain that's very reliable, gets you from terminal to terminal very well. A lot of good options in there for quick food. Again, very rare you have much of a security wait. Like very clean, very modern. I really like Orlando International as an option. So those would be, I guess, my 4. I'm cheating here a little. So I have 2 and then a 3A, 3B.
Okay. I actually love Midway as a guy who flies out of there a lot in Chicago. And for me, it's because of the convenience. It's smaller. I don't have to go through the massive conglomerate that is O'Hare. O'Hare, when you land at O'Hare, the taxi ride is interminable. trying to get back to the terminal, and then finding or getting to like the Uber station, you have to often tram to that or to the blue line, whereas it's really simple to get to the orange line from Midway. So a big fan there. Love Field in Dallas is kind of like that, the smaller Southwest based airport rather than the huge one. I really like Tampa. I've flown there a lot because my dad lives down there. It's pretty conveniently located near the city. I've always had really, really smooth moving through security there. Their tram's really quick and modern. And the one thing I will say with Midway, as you mentioned, the food selection is pretty terrible. There's not a lot of like typical fast food. It's a lot of like Chicago local chains that take a little longer. So I'll own that. I also really like Palm Springs and Maui just because they're outdoor terminals or there's like outdoor concourse stuff. They're just like bragging in your face. Like, this is how nice our location is, that we don't have to cover them. We're not even worried about rain or cold.
Oh my gosh.
And then I just like the name Sky Harbor in Phoenix. I'm not sure I love the airport, but the name is awesome.
I've never been, but the name is really wonderful. That's such a beautiful name for anything, a Sky Harbor.
Yes, Sky Harbor feels very relaxing.
Quick bottom three, DFL by mile, Newark, awful airport. Never flying.
I've never been there.
God awful. Whatever the secondary airport in Houston is, I can never remember the name. I think
there's Bush Hobby or Bush.
Bush is the main. So Hobby is terrible. Awful airport. Charlotte. The least convenient airport in America. So it's like a spoke system where the terminals are like, like this. It's kind of like a clock almost. And so there's no easy way to get from one terminal to another. You have to travel through the midpoint of the airport to get to like A to C. And like, there's no train, there's no sort of transportation that can help you. I've had multiple sweat fest with connecting, because Knoxville has to use Charlotte as a connector for American or United One. And I have had multiple sweaty runs through the Charlotte airport trying to get from one terminal to another. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, no matter how much I felt myself disliking the Hartsfield, Jackson, Atlanta security line, I know that I can use the SkyTram there to get from the terminals like pretty quickly, and it's not going to kill me. In Charlotte, I have no such convenience factor, and I am sprinting, and it is miserable. I don't know if this guy's on the staff anymore, but for one of the Final Fours, I think when I met you first in 2023, it was like me and then like half of the UVA staff sprinting from one terminal to another. It is like,
love it.
It's like, how could you guys not afford better? We're on the same crappy flight to Houston.
Okay. Well, hey, that you have it from a frequent traveler through there. When I lived in Vegas, I didn't mind Vegas. I think it gets a bad rap because most people are very hungover. People are very hungover when they're there, but when you're not hungover, it's not such a bad airport.
One other quick honorable mention I didn't think of in time. I did enjoy Austin when I flew in for the first time this past year. Quite convenient. No real major thoughts, but all you really need from an airport is convenient, quick, and has good food selection, and met all three for me.
Check those boxes. All right, real quick, Will, before we let you go, we've got a few games in the Power Conference world tonight. Does Willstradamus have any real hankerings, anything in the gut, in the plums that you're feeling? We got Louisville at Cal, Butler at Creighton, in the plums. That's right.
And the nuts.
Notre Dame at Stanford, New Mexico, Boise State. What do you got?
I'm really liking Boise State in this one. New Mexico's got some two-way regression factors going against them that I don't love. And Boise at what is this arena called now? Because it was Taco Bell Arena for a long time, and I love that because that was one that
Exact Tech. No, Extra Mile. That's what it's called.
Exact Tech. What is Exact Tech? Is that Florida?
I can't remember.
I think that is.
Yeah, that's Florida. Okay.
Which I also think of as the O Dome. So I've never thought of it as Exact Tech. Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, whatever. Taco Bell Arena is a fortress. You don't leave there unscathed. So I got Boise State by 10. I've had some real conflicting thoughts on Louisville, California, because that one strikes me as like that could potentially be a weird travel deal because Louisville's doing the westward swing, but Cal's not really well built to take advantage of what Louisville does wrong. So I'll go Louisville by 9. Give me Creighton at home. This is the anxiety bowl of the week for me, by the way, because this means a lot both ways for at-large status for each. Butler really needs this to solidify their case, and Creighton really needs this to dig out of the depths they built for themselves in Players era. But I'll go Creighton by 3 in a game that neither team is going to feel very comfortable during. Let's go with a bonus. I'm scanning for a bonus here, a Domantas Sabonis, if you will.
Miami of Ohio, do they stay undefeated at Bowling Green despite being
That's what I'm
underdogs?
looking at.
Okay.
Yeah, Miami of Ohio, undefeated. They're
There we
going to
go.
win by 2 on the road. I've called it. I had them in that stupid predictions thing I made. I said they'd make it to January 7th undefeated, and I was not anticipating Bowling Green being this good. But I'm going down with the ship, baby.
I love it. You mentioned their offensive coordinator, so you might as well make it a Red Hawks love pod. We respect that.
Mhm.
All right, that is it, folks. Hopefully those are all exactly spot on. I'm sure they will be. Thank you to Home Field, our sponsor, Corey Aldis, for our production behind the scenes. Thank you to everybody for the questions. Enjoyed the mailbag episode here, letting us take a break from generating the content. We appreciate that. We'll be back with the normal.
Thanks for letting us be lazy for once.
Yeah, the normal 7-stat rotation will be back next week. Don't worry. But yeah, thank you to Corey, to Trilly, to Sam for our graphics, Home Field for sponsoring. I believe that's it. Will, anything else before we let the people go?
I got nothing. I'm proud of our work in 2025. Pretty cool to launch a new website and for people to like it. Basketball Review, you got to go there, man. If you're somehow just a listener to this show and you don't already go to the site, you are really missing out on some great content.
Well said. Well said. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back next week. Enjoy your new year. Don't go too crazy, but have fun.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Cheers.